Okay, so get this. We're diving into the world of Wing Chun today.
Whoa.
Our listeners sent us this podcast episode all about it, and wow, it's got everything. History, legends, global impact.
It really does.
Yeah, the whole shebang. So we're going to do a deep dive into Wing Chun, its origins, how it's evolved, and everything in between.
Sounds good to me.
Think of it kind of like a crash course in Wing Chun, but like way more fun than a boring history lesson, right?
Yeah, what I always found interesting about Wing Chun is how it walks this line between, fact and legend.
Right.
It's like you're trying to put together this puzzle, but like some of the pieces are missing.
Yeah.
Which I guess makes it even more intriguing, don't you think?
Totally. And speaking of legends, let's talk about that origin story.
Okay.
So the podcast mentions this nun, Ingmui, right? And she creates Wing Chun based on animal movements like a crane and a snake. Yeah.
Can you imagine, listener, this legendary martial art coming from watching animals? I mean, is there any truth to this, or is it like total martial arts mythology?
Well, to be honest with you, concrete historical evidence is a little hard to come by.
Right.
But the story itself, I think, reveals a lot about Wing Chun's philosophy.
Okay.
So think about a crane, right? Grace, precision, those like lightning fast strikes.
Yeah.
That's essentially the core of Wing Chun's efficiency. And then you have the snake, all about fluid movements, adapting to whatever comes at you and using your opponent's energy against them.
Mm-hmm.
So these animals, they perfectly embody the core principles of Wing Chun.
Even if it's more of a like symbolic story,
Yeah.
it really gets at the heart of what Wing Chun is all about.
Exactly. Now, the podcast also talks about Wing Chun's journey from its birthplace in China to becoming this like global phenomenon.
Right.
I mean, we're talking from Hong Kong to the Americas here.
Yeah.
So what caused this incredible spread, and like how has Wing Chun evolved along the way?
Well, it's really a fascinating example of cultural exchange when you think about it.
Mm-hmm.
The 20th century, that's when Wing Chun really took off. And that's largely thanks to influential figures like Ip Man.
Ip Man.
He wasn't just a skilled practitioner. He was like a master teacher
Ooh.
who drew in this huge following in Hong Kong.
Wait a minute. Wasn't Ip Man Bruce Lee's teacher?
That's right.
Now that's a claim to fame.
Yeah, and that teacher-student connection that played a huge role in introducing Wing Chun to the West.
I can see that.
Bruce Lee's on-screen presence and his undeniable martial arts mastery really sparked global interest in Wing Chun.
Yeah.
And while he eventually developed his own style, Jeet Kune Do,
Right.
its roots in Wing Chun are undeniable.
Of course. So we've got these key figures spreading Wing Chun's influence,
Yeah.
but it's not like it just stayed frozen in time, did it?
No.
How has it adapted to different cultures while still staying true to itself?
Well, that's the beauty of Wing Chun. It's adaptable by nature.
Okay.
So as it spread, it absorbed influences from other martial arts and local fighting styles.
Interesting.
The episode even mentions Wing Chun integrating with Silat in Southeast Asia and Western boxing in the Americas.
Wow.
Listener, imagine combining the Swiss kicks of Wing Chun with the grappling techniques of Judo.
Wow.
I mean, that's how adaptable this art form can be.
So it's constantly evolving.
Exactly.
That's so cool. Now, speaking of different places, the podcast episode you shared specifically mentions Argentina.
Yes.
Is that just a coincidence, or is there something special about Wing Chun in Argentina?
It's no coincidence at all. Argentina actually has a thriving Wing Chun community.
Oh, really?
And this is where figures like Sifu Roberto Tashuk and Sifu Abraham Lopez come in. Now, for our listeners, Sifu is a term of respect for a teacher in Chinese martial arts.
Okay.
And these Sifus were instrumental in establishing Wing Chun schools and teaching generations of students in Argentina.
Wow.
It just goes to show you how this martial art can take root and flourish in all corners of the world.
It's amazing. It's really amazing how Wing Chun has found a home for itself in so many different cultures.
It is.
But speaking of home, the podcast we're diving into really stresses that Wing Chun isn't just about fighting.
Right.
It's about this deeper connection between the mind and body.
Yeah.
It's like they're saying Wing Chun is like this ultimate stress buster and self-defense system all in one. So what's the reality behind this whole mind-body connection?
Well, I can see why people might be skeptical.
Right.
It does sound almost too good to be true.
Yeah.
But the mind-body connection in Wing Chun is very real.
Okay.
It goes way beyond, just throwing punches and kicks.
Right.
We're talking about developing this heightened awareness of your body, your breath, even your surroundings.
So it's kind of like meditation, but with a martial arts twist?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Awesome.
Remember how the episode talked about meditation, controlled breathing? Those are actually key parts of Wing Chun training.
Interesting.
And these practices help cultivate focus, discipline, emotional regulation,
Wow.
benefits that go way beyond your training.
Right.
Imagine like facing a stressful situation,
Yeah.
but you have that same calm focus you've developed through Wing Chun.
That's what you're bringing to the table.
Yeah, that's the power of this mind-body connection.
That's a really fascinating point, and that kind of makes me think, I've always thought of martial arts as being very, like, physically demanding.
Right.
But what you're saying is Wing Chun can be for anyone.
Absolutely.
So how would someone with, like, limited mobility benefit from this practice?
Well, that's a common misconception.
Okay.
And you're right, the podcast touched on that as well.
Yeah.
While Wing Chun does involve some physical exertion,
Yeah.
it's not about just brute strength or athleticism.
Okay.
Instead, it emphasizes technique, precision, and leverage.
So you're working smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
Okay.
And this makes it adaptable for a really wide range of people, even older adults, seeking to improve their balance, coordination, and mobility.
Wow.
In fact, you'll find many Wing Chun schools offer like specialized programs for different age groups and fitness levels.
That's incredible. It really does open up the world of Wing Chun to so many more people.
It does.
This is really making me realize there's so much more to this martial art than I initially thought.
Right.
And that's kind of what's so interesting is the podcast briefly mentioned all the diversity within Wing Chun itself.
Yeah.
The different styles and lineages. And this can be kind of overwhelming, I imagine, for newcomers trying to navigate it all
Sure.
and, find a teacher that really fits with their goals.
Of course.
It's like stepping into this massive library, but there's no Dewey Decimal System.
Right.
A little intimidating.
Yeah, I get it. It can feel like navigating a maze.
Yeah.
Essentially, while all Wing Chun styles share those fundamental principles we talked about, the crane and the snake,
Mm-hmm.
they often diverge in their emphasis on specific techniques or footwork patterns,
Okay.
or even their training methodologies.
Gotcha.
So, for example, take Ip Man's lineage.
Okay.
It's known for its directness and practicality in combat,
Mm-hmm.
often characterized by a more aggressive approach.
Okay. Interesting.
Now, Yuan Keisan's lineage, on the other hand, is known for its focus on sensitivity redirecting your opponent's force,
Interesting.
leading to a slightly softer, more flowing style.
So it's not a matter of one being better.
Right.
It's about finding the style that really resonates with your personality and goals.
Right.
So it's less about finding like the quote-unquote best style,
Right.
and it's more about just finding the best fit for you.
Exactly.
Like finding the ideal dance partner, but for martial arts.
There you go. It's about finding that lineage and that teacher whose approach really aligns with your own individual needs and aspirations.
Okay.
And, a lot of really skilled practitioners, they even incorporate elements from multiple lineages,
Really?
which really just enriches their understanding of the art even more.
It's like you're a Wing Chun mixologist.
There you go.
You're creating this unique blend.
I like that.
That's really cool. This actually makes me think about how the podcast really emphasized that community aspect of Wing Chun.
Yeah.
So for our listener out there who's feeling totally pumped and wants to explore this world even more, where do they even begin?
Well, that's a great question. And you're right, the podcast was spot on about the importance of community.
Yeah.
It's not just about learning the techniques.
Right.
It's about connecting with people who share that same passion for Wing Chun's philosophy and practice.
Mm-hmm.
And the good news is, with Wing Chun's global reach, you're likely to find schools even in your own backyard.
Oh, for sure. I have to admit, though, the thought of just like Googling Wing Chun near me,
Yeah,
it's a little daunting.
it can be.
So do you have any advice for our listeners? What should they look for when they're exploring different schools or teachers?
Sure. A good starting point is always to look for schools with a clear lineage,
Okay.
meaning they can trace their teachings back to a recognized Wing Chun master.
Right.
This will help make sure you're learning from a credible source.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And don't hesitate to reach out to different schools, ask about their teaching style, maybe even sit in on a class or two if you
Oh,
can.
that's a great idea.
Chatting with current students, they can also give you a good feel for the overall atmosphere.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So it really is like dating, but for martial arts.
It kind of is.
You got to find that perfect match.
Exactly. You want to find that environment where you feel comfortable learning, growing, and challenging yourself.
Of course.
And above all, approach your exploration with an open mind and a willingness to learn.
I love that.
Mm.
This deep dive has been absolutely incredible.
It has.
We've gone from ancient legends to like modern day practices, global reach, and even the importance of just finding your own Wing Chun family.
Your tribe.
Listener, did you ever imagine there was so much to uncover in the world of Wing Chun?
Right? It's been such a pleasure exploring these different facets of Wing Chun with you today.
Likewise.
What we've discussed really is just the tip of the iceberg.
For
There are
sure.
so many layers to this art, historical, philosophical,
Yeah.
practical,
Right.
just waiting to be discovered.
And that brings us to our final thought for our listeners.
Okay.
So, the podcast emphasized how Wing Chun has really taken root all around the world.
Mhm.
So, here's something to think about. What does Wing Chun look like in your community?
Yeah,
How has it been shaped by your local culture?
I like it.
You never know. There might be this hidden gem of a Wing Chun school right around the corner just waiting for you to walk through its doors.
You never know.
And with that, we'll wrap up our deep dive into the fascinating world of Wing Chun. Keep exploring, keep learning, and we'll catch you in the next episode.